part of what we're talking about today is that, omnichannel is this sort of holistic experience with many touch points, and, every channel essentially has to be measured correctly and made sure that it's hitting the consumer at the right time when they're receptive. And part of that is making sure that it's accessible to everyone. I mean, if due to someone's differently abled and they couldn't receive part of the omnichannel, then the whole illusion would basically fall down. So the designs that we do now are very important, both from the hardware and software perspective, in making sure everyone receives the omnichannel. So I'd like to welcome Chris Lewis, who is the founding director of Lewis Insight. We have Monica Paolini, who's the founder and principal of Senza, Fili. And then we have Chris McGinley, who is at the Royal College of Art doing inclusive research and design. And then we have Mark Knowles, who is the sales director at Genesis. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Monica, you're going to start us off?
Yes, absolutely. Right, Ross, thank you so much for the introduction. And I'd like to thank Matt for having us here, as we were in Barcelona last year, and we will be in Barcelona doing something similar this year. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk to all of you guys, because we're going to talk about something that cuts across not only about the topic here, but basically telecoms in general. And what we do at in these events is to really try to compare notes to see how we think, approach, and what we do about inclusivity. And we all do different things, but nobody has an answer. But there is a lot that we can talk about. And I've learned, and Chris has learned a lot, and we hope that you do too. So what we're going to do today is, since this is a debate, open debate, we don't have a Q&A at the end, but do feel free to raise your hand and tell us you want to say something, ask something, give us a comment. And I'm going to have Chris talk about what Chris and I are doing together at Inclusively, and then we will move on to the panel itself. Chris.
Thank you, Monica. So under Inclusively, and as analysts, we're always trying to get as many perspectives into our thinking as possible. So we've been talking to CTOs, for example, Taylor's in Canada. We've been talking to the CIO from BT Digital about what they're doing with apps design and so on. We've been talking with Vodafone and other people about women in technology and in the industry. So we're always striving to get as many perspectives on the table as possible. And of course, that's both for diversity of employment within the organizations, but also creating opportunities for say, visually impaired, being blind, to have a vested interest in the vision impaired world. And I was listening to someone this morning that said, I think 70% of blind people aren't employed. So one of the things I'm sure Mark will touch upon in a second is this notion of the contact center and who can do what jobs within the contact center. But the really important thing, and it touches partly upon the last session, which is all of the means that we've got of communicating with each other. Which one, not necessarily which one's the best technology, because we know the best technology is rarely the answer in the market, but people's preferences. And people's preferences are often determined by the fact that they might not be able to see very well, so they want enlarged text. They might not be able to hear, so the spoken word is not so good. They might not be able to have the skills to use the website. And what we've done inclusively is we've identified that the disabled population, which is roughly 1 billion people in the world, is excluded from many aspects of all of the interactions that we've been talking about the last couple of days. The elderly population, given that they are either not necessarily educated around digital usage, or they have some disability coming on as they age, as we all hear about a lot, that they're excluded. But there's also the people who are economically excluded, people who are physically excluded. And of course, there's the issue of language as well. So one of the things that we're very excited about is all of the different perspectives that get brought to the table, and trying to help everyone understand, because this is something everybody can contribute to. It's not just for the people in the old CSR department. It's very much for everyone to build into all of their activities. So I'm delighted that we've got two very different perspectives on the panel today, in addition to Monica and myself. So Chris McGinley, as Ross said, comes from the Royal College of Art around that whole inclusive design, working with mature students, very high level students on design, literally designing everything. And we'll get Chris to talk about that in a second. But I want to start with Mark Knowles, who's kindly stepped in last minute from Genesis, because the whole omni-channel issue, Mark, is around how do we get the best service, how do we get the best interaction. So can you tell us a bit about Genesis, about yourself, and about your thoughts about inclusive design?
Okay, yep, hi. Hello, everybody. For those who don't know, Genesis is a customer experience platform. In other words, contact center. So where you all link to how you get help, you have your own contact centers. Everyone you deal with nowadays has that. But omnichannel is absolutely key. We would call it empathy, which is the right people want the right ability to contact, transact, complain, do whatever they want in the way that they want to do it, and actually get the response back in the way that they want to do it as well. And at Genesis, we design a whole software, a whole ideology, and how we deal with everybody is the word empathy. And that does extend out into the accessibility. I personally, and I'm standing in today, so I apologize, I have spent 30 years in the technology industry, worked for technology vendors for 30 years, so I do know multiple ones, but my focus at the moment is on public sector, where accessibility is now accounting for at least 10% of the scoring of RFPs that come in. And we've just received a very large one the last week, which it is now mandatory. And then therefore we have to answer, we have to provide solutions for that. So we've built our platform around open APIs where we can link in partners, other products to help us with that. And I think that's where Chris was talking about this morning, was we have one partner which is based in Florida, which actually runs a contact center with 40% of their workforce is visually impaired. And the reason they've had to do that is because they're based in Florida. It's an aging population. They couldn't actually get the staff. So your stat of 40%, sorry, there is a huge proportion of visually impaired people in Florida who can't get a job. So this was extending out the story. And from that, then we've worked with them, we've built it up, and now we've got it as a partnership that we're actually selling out as a product to add on to all ours to make all our contact centers accessible.
It is fascinating because obviously I've done a lot of work around all disabilities, and I can't even represent all the variations of vision impaired people because there are so many different variations and gradations of impairment. So when we talk about design and designing systems, whether it's, I think in the case, great example where employment increases because of that for the people with vision impairment. But in my mind, more importantly, how you address the end market. And Chris McGinley, given your background within the Royal College of Art, talk to us about inclusive design and design for the edge and get the center for free, because it's a fascinating concept.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm Chris McGinley, and I'm based in the Royal College of Art. Our research centre is the Helen Hamlyn Centre for Design. So it's been around for just over 30 years, and the original director was the guy that coined the term inclusive design. So we're the source, if you like, of that notion. So I lead the age and diversity space, and I'm involved in an initiative called the Design Age Institute, which has been around for about 3 years. It was funded, so it got 5 million funding or thereabouts from UKRI to look at this issue of healthy aging in the longevity economy and how it's been underserved, essentially. So yeah, my background, I'm a design engineer by training, and I went to the Royal College of Art. It's fully post-grad, so average age is about 27. But what's interesting about the Royal College of Art is it's 70% design, kind of practice design related courses. And within most major companies that have design departments, you'll find an RCA graduate at quite a high level. So another part of our remit is to get into the heads of these post-grad students, talk to them about inclusion, talk to them about including people, not just topping and tailing, maybe talking to diverse groups at the beginning and then doing a wee bit of testing at the end and saying, oh, we did inclusive design. It's about including people throughout the process. So this idea of nothing about us without us. So we're very much about creating
tools, processes, and outcomes that are all about inclusive design. So it's complex, Chris. Like you said, even within visual impairment, it's that idea of one person's experience is distinct from another's. There's so many different conditions, and that goes across everything. And we're all going in that direction because one thing that we've all got in common is we're aging. And so as we age, we will, no matter our genetics, our lifestyle, our luck, there will be multiple minor impairments at best that we'll have to deal with. And that'll be part of our user experience.
May I ask you a quick question? Because when we think about engineering, we don't think about design. Design is more on a creative side, so to say. But I guess that what you're trying to do is something really important, is to get the idea that you design technology. It's not just executing in terms of implementing a technology. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess talking to that, we can't do anything alone. So we have a good sense of how you maybe bridge user experience and design concept. But we have to meet the experts and understand what's out there, and not just be responsive, not be tech pushed. Have a sense of what's the better experience and what are the ingredients in our recipe to make that experience as close to what people desire as possible.
So Mark, can I come to you from the point of view of dealing with the telecom industry? Because at the event which I run every year called the Great Telco Debate, last year we had the group CIO from Sainsbury's who said to me, the problem with telecoms is that customers are an abstract concept, that we don't really engage with the customers. How is what you're doing addressing the customer, that contact into that linchpin between them? How is that changing from the telco point of view? And are there other industries where you'd say they're much better at that?
Yeah, very much so. And interestingly enough, Sainsbury's 4 months ago signed up with us as well. So they are trying to get closer to their customer, trying to understand their customer. And actually then they want to transform the way they do that. So the way they're going to do that is understand their customer. So they're going to have access to, obviously, if people allow them to have access to the data, they can see what they bought, the trends they've bought, the issues they've bought. Are they part of the memberships? Did they have deliveries? And it can actually create a picture of them. So when they do contact and by whatever means, and again, omnichannel is massive. It's not just text, email. Social now is moving up a level. So watching the social, answering the social is a huge part of what they're trying to do at the moment and get closer. And obviously they don't want bad press. They want to get out there, answer it, and actually give the positive feedbacks on it as well. So they are getting very much closer to that. But in the telco, we have a large number of customers as well who are having to innovate to stay ahead of each other, because as you all know, it's hugely competitive. And I think I heard just from the last session there, margins are small. How do you differentiate yourself? How do you become closer? How do you become sticky with your own customers and obviously customers for your business customers as well? That's the bit that this brings it all together. It's a platform that allows them to see all that data. And I'll take you back to the word empathy, is call up and know why someone's calling. So we could track them on a website. We can see where they've got halfway through, maybe on an SMS and got stuck. Therefore, the agent who picks it up can actually see where the progress they've done, understand what they've done, see the frustrations, and actually be empathetic with the story, and then hopefully solve the problem and understand why they're calling, and then resolve it quickly. The other question you asked was what other industries? Insurance and finance are going through the roof at the moment. In again, very similar, trying to differentiate themselves, introduce new services, particularly around digital. They've all got apps now. They've all got their own systems, but they still want to open up as many channels as possible to their customers. And that's where we're all coming in and helping them with that. We're trying to.
And Chris, one thing which I've come across, to your point about us all aging, is that despite me supposedly having fantastic hearing, because my eyes aren't very good, I'm actually now need hearing aids because I've damaged my right ear. And I'm finding that the design criteria for the hearing impairment community, they've done it in isolation from the vision impairment community. Is that common? So the physical disabilities tend to have things designed for them, vision impaired, hearing impaired, cognitively impaired. So actually, we've not got the scale that we need to bring all these things together. Are we any sign that that's beginning to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, you're highlighting it, and I think more and more people are realizing the better, or the design solutions that are going towards something that works better for more need to include these different perspectives. And a lot of times it is contradictory, or conflicting, the needs of different groups. I guess it's like a lot of the time design's seen as problem solving, but I think for us, design is about problem framing and making sure that we understand different perspectives as well as possible. So the centre's worked with about 200 different organizations on about 300 projects, and sometimes that is charities, maybe Arthritis Research UK, for example, that are now Versus Arthritis. But obviously our focus then was on dexterity and mobility and movement and what have you. But this project was around kitchen goods. But as we went into that space, we began to realize, okay, low vision's a big part of this experience. So we had to, put that to them that, in order to frame this problem, we're going to have to think about these multiple different factors. A good example I have of that is I one time went to a meeting with TfL, and they were talking about the announcements. Somebody made a kind of complaint about the announcements and said, look, I'm autistic, and one of my triggers is noise and repetition. And when I'm in the train, these repeated announcements of me coming towards the station, arriving at the station, the doors are open for the station, it sort of, it makes me anxious. And someone in the same space kind of put their hand up and went, oh, I'm really sorry, but I was one of the people that was responsible for that decision, because we were consulting people with low vision, and they told us it'd be really useful to get an announcement a few minutes beforehand as we're approaching the station and when we arrive in the station. So it was just that they didn't bring enough people to the table to talk about these different experiences and needs.
And I think, Mark, one of the questions that we're all looking at is the role of machine learning, AI. Is anything in that will make the contact center, make the interaction richer?
Absolutely. We're spending probably 75% of our research at the moment into AI, as is all technology companies and communication companies. It is the way forward, and then it goes right from the first interaction. So, be it a voice call, it is inquiring who they are, what they are, identifying themselves. If there is clearance, it could be voice recognition, it could be passwords. It's anything to get them in, but then to find out what they want to do. But from that, the system is learning in the background each time. So if that person then calls in again, we can be routing them to the special person. And again, if they have needs, they need someone who, I don't know, say language, or somebody who can sit with them in terms of and work with them. And again, we work with a number of charities as well. So vulnerable people as well is way that we can identify that from the entrance in, but using AI. But AI is also then not just for the people calling in, it's for the agents. So we hugely care about the mindset of the agent, the ability of the agent to answer the question. AI has been bucketed in this area that says, oh, we're going to divert you to AI every time. And everyone now doesn't want that. They want to actually speak to somebody. But you only want to speak to somebody if you want to. But if you actually just wanted to change an address or make a payment and do something simple, and you're capable and happy to do that, that is your preferred route. So AI will learn and push you to the most appropriate solution or channel or agent, in fact, depending on their skill sets as well, to match what they've heard and what's come in.
But also there is a question of how you train an AI model. And so you need, if you train it with like the sort of average, normal, whatever you want to call them, then you might have biases, or you might not include everybody. So how can we get beyond that and exclude? I mean, you cannot exclude bias, but how we control for the bias or try to get over it?
Yep, and again, you can help and steer the answers that AI is coming up. We've been in the contact center industry for 30 years, so we have a huge amount of experience and background. If you think every single call transaction is coming in and we're learning, but rather than giving the answers back. So one of the biggest things we're doing at the moment is Agent Assist, which is actually going through the knowledge bases, but using AI to surface to the top what's most relevant or what's current, or if there's some issue happening somewhere that they have the answer for it. And that's self-learning because it's listening to what's going on all the time.
Chris, the question which bothers me the most is that we're trying to do more and more things, whether it's in Mark's contact centers, or it's all the messaging we heard about in the last session, or we're trying to sell people stuff online. And we've created a great deal of clutter on websites, and which can only cause more problems. So do you, it's an unfair question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Do you think AI and machine learning can help drive simplicity, or is that something that your people you're bringing through and yourselves will have to do with? Where do you see the relationship between AI and simplicity?
That's a tricky question. I mean, yeah, the hope is that it is one of the routes to more simplicity. It feels like there has to be a blend, like there always has to be the human aspect of it that's plugging in the right data or steering the right data that's inclusive and broad. I think in the same respect thing, I mean, I'm no expert in the AI space, but I know the likes of Chat GPT and what have you can tell some very convincing mistruths or, it's flawed information. So it still seems to need that kind of verification, if you like, in terms of the websites and this absolute, it's like trying to take a drink from a water fountain, like just this mass of data and different sources. And I think maybe AI can, in some ways, shield people, if you like, from what they don't need to see. It can help make that communication channel just more direct, more relevant. That's my sense.
By the way, if there is anything from any questions, comments from the audience, just raise your hand. I will. Okay, we have a question. Okay.
And our answer to that is that we're actually at the moment using a closed environment. So to answer your question, it's not going out to the whole GDP world. We're actually doing it using generative AI on knowledge bases that we're providing it, and then using conversational AI to extract that out and then actually give that back to people. And one of the biggest savings we have for the agents is auto summarization. So again, it might be a skill set where somebody isn't very good at writing. They're very good at answering the phone, answering people's problems, but actually summarizing a call or a difficult call has been really hard for them and can take up to 10 minutes for some people. If you use AI in the right way with conversational learnings and generative in that, it actually can produce a very valid summary almost instantly.
So I don't know who wants to answer this question. Perhaps even Monica might have a go. One thing that occurs to me is that because we're using natural language, so we're asking a system, we're asking a machine to do something, but it's speaking our language for the first time. We're not having to speak technical language. Is that likely to improve the voice channel of interaction? Because everything we just heard in the previous session was all about WhatsApp and messaging and so on. Could this potentially be a swing back to voice again? Monica, that's for you.
Sorry, I was looking at the design.
That's an unfair question for Chris or Mark. It just occurs to me, and I'll tell you where it comes from. I was at the big TM Forum event up in Copenhagen, and the CIO of BT said, for the first time, technology is talking our language, literally talking our language. So we've gone through some time immemorial where we used to grunt and gesture at each other. We've created alphabets, we've created systems, we've encoded them, we've done alphabets, we've computerized it, and now we've almost gone full circle. We can choose to use any channel we want to communicate with each other and with the internet for that matter. So I just want, given for the human to human communication, I think voice might be making a comeback. That's my prediction.
Sorry, just to say, we're looking at exactly that. We're in the process of writing a new publicly accessible specification with the British Standards Institute and partnering with Tata Consultancy Services, looking at focal accessibility and how that, how we can get ahead of that. Like the technology is progressing so fast, and there seems to be fantastic potential around inclusivity, accessibility. I think voice is, a preferred medium. There's some issues around there, like privacy and what have you, security, trust that keeps coming up. We're always dealing with trust. But yeah, I think voice making a comeback. Yeah, if it ever fully went away, yeah, I think that's definitely a big part of what we're looking at the moment.
Well, if you think about historically, before the printing press were invented, we lived in a world which was much more auditory. We just speak to each other. We didn't have anything printed in, so it was not so visual. Then it became everything much more visual. And now what we have the opportunity is to really, when we think about multimedia, it's really using different channels. And by doing that, we're able to reach a wider number of people. Not because necessarily they're disabled, but because they might have a different preference, because maybe English is not their first language and they still want to communicate with people. So I think that's kind of widening to everything. I think that Susan was trying to tell me that we are out of time. Do we have time for another question or question from the audience? This is your last chance. Okay, we have here. We have a. Okay, sorry.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. We've seen the rise through the early 2000s of text messaging. We look at the origins of how that came about. That came about from young people adopting it. What we're now seeing is that young people increasingly are adopting voice messaging. It's not asynchronous. It's not synchronous. It's asynchronous. But they'll send one another a voice clip. And when we see the vast improvements that we've now seen with the ability for voice to understand all our different dialects and the way that we each day, and the accuracy of that has vastly improved. I, for one, I'm convinced that voice is absolutely making a comeback. So thank you for that comment, Chris.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, listen.
Any other question from the audience?
Susan said we can't have any more questions.
No more. Okay.
So, and when Susan says
okay, we will be well behaved. So thank you so much.
And we're gonna stay around. We'll be around for the end of the session for drink. But in the meantime, Chris McGinley from the Royal College of Art, thank you very much indeed for sharing your more academic but that developmental view. And Mark from Genesis, thank you for bringing that contact center to life for us all. Thanks for your attention. Take care. Bye bye.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.